Welcome to the Waffle Flower channel. This is Nicole, and today I am sharing a Plaid Play background with the brand new Plaid Play Stamp Set. This is a fantastic plaid builder stamp set. The possibilities are absolutely endless with this stamp set. So many fantastic things you can do. I'm going to share my personal favorite today, and that is creating a plaid at an angle. Angles are forgiving because if you don't stamp it exactly straight, you're not going to be able to tell. So I generally, when I create plaids, there is an angle somewhere because it kind of helps dispel anything that might not be perfect. The other thing I like to do when creating my own plaids is I very much like using some sort of a pigment ink to create the plaid. In this instance, I'm using the Distress Oxide Inks. These are Distress inks, but they are the oxides and they've got pigment ink in them. They have fantastic coverage, as you can see, and the results are beautiful. So you can use any ink you want. Dye inks tend to maybe not have the same amount of coverage depending on the stamp. For these, where they're very solid, most of them, you can see here that they're solid, pretty wide stamps. I just find that pigment inks of some sort give that kind of coverage that I want. I very much want this to look like a pattern paper background. I want this to look like it came from a larger sheet of paper and I've simply trimmed it down to use it. And what's fantastic about this is you can create a design to perfectly match whatever occasion you're working on. So this is more of a celebratory type of card. By switching up the colors and greeting, you could have an autumn type card, a Thanksgiving card, a Christmas card, a springtime card, a Valentine's card, birthday cards. Whatever you need a card for, you can create a custom background. What I like to do is create all in one direction. I am using Salty Ocean, Peacock Feathers, Twisted Citron, and Fossilized Amber Distress Oxide Inks. So once I have that all in one direction, I like to tip my paper and I'm simply going to work back the other way. So I generally pick one stripe to do that is kind of, eyeballing it straight on with the other one. So it'll create a nice perpendicular angle there, and simply start stamping. And you can definitely see the plaid starting to take place once all of these stripes get stamped. Just a really fun, very easy way to create plaid backgrounds. So this is a fantastic basic stamp set that you can create all kinds of things with. I am going to finish stamping these last few stripes to finish out this piece of paper before moving on and adding the embellishments. I decided to do a combination of embellishments here, a dimensional greeting, a stamped and embossed greeting on a thin black strip to really help it pop. The dimensional greeting is going to be die cut from Fun Foam. And then I'm going to add some stamped and embossed heart balloons that I'm going to apply these same colors of Distress Oxide inks to so that they perfectly coordinate. So that's what I was talking about, creating perfectly coordinated backgrounds to match your embellishments. The hearts here, or the heart balloon, is from the Congrats stamp set from Waffle Flower. And I'm stamping it on this is a scrap of Bristol Smooth cardstock. I'm stamping it multiple times, heat embossing with some white embossing powder, and then taking those same Distress Oxide colors and applying them over the entire image, even that white outline. So basically you're going to see a balloon with a nice white outline and then these nice pops of color. If any of your embossing powder ever kind of sticks somewhere it's not supposed to, a fine or small tip paintbrush will help you remove those stray pieces of embossing powder. I'm going to heat all of these balloons up, die cut all of them with the coordinating Congrats die, and then apply the ink. You could also apply the ink and then die cut them, whatever you want to do. I didn't want any cross contamination of colors with the hearts being so close together, so I went ahead and die cut them first and then applied the ink. I'm using a little bit of Post-it tape to hold the die in place and then run it through the Sizzix die cutting machine over and over. So I'm applying the ink, and then I want to buff it off because I want to buff off any of that ink that might be on the white embossing. This is embossed resist. So when you apply the ink, it's very heavy over the whole thing, and you're going to lose some of the detail of that white embossing because the ink is sitting up on top of that. And it's also going to be very wet. So I like to take a dry rag, a dry paper towel, and buff those until they're nice and smooth and the white outline really shines. I'm going to do this for all of those hearts. So super cute. I just love this. And I think this is one of those card designs that would work and be nice for, be a nice masculine card as opposed to so many cards. I just think it's our inclination a lot of times that cards for women are so much more easy. Even though these have heart balloons, you could switch them and do a different balloon shape. But I think even with this, this would work for a boy. The color scheme is fantastic, and it's just a great celebration type card. You could even switch up the small greeting underneath, and that changes the whole feeling. I am tying a little bit of string. This is really thin twine. You could use embroidery floss, crochet thread, all kinds of things. Tying those to the bottom of each of the balloons, and I'm also attaching them with foam adhesive. So I had done 3 previously just to kind of see if I liked them, and I did. So I'm going to attach those first. I've also laid out my die. I've laid out the strip. This greeting is from the Congrats stamp set. I stamped it on black cardstock, embossed it with white embossing powder, and then cut it into a thin strip. But I want to lay out my balloons and figure out where I want them all to go. Then I'm going to apply a foam adhesive square, a glue dot down near the bottom. That's going to help hold the twine or embroidery floss in place while you tie it on. And then I am simply tying that in a knot to the bottom, snipping the one end, leaving the other tail long so that I can stretch it all the way to the bottom of the card panel and secure it to the back of this panel with, you could use washi tape, Post-it tape, and other adhesives, but you just want it to be nice and taut so that the strings kind of go all the way down, straight down the card, and then wrap around the back. I'm going to do this for all of the balloons. Have some of them overlap here and there. Laying out your dimensional greeting or the die you're going to use for the dimensional greeting and your other greeting strip helps make sure you leave space for that. Where this whole panel is now being filled with balloons, you want to make sure you leave room for those things. I find it's easy to lay those things out on your card, and that way you leave the space and you don't accidentally put something where it isn't supposed to go and have to try to remove it and maybe tear your background with that adhesive. Fill in this bottom right corner, the last remaining balloons. And I'm going to flip it over here in just a second and show you so you see what the back of the panel looks like. Again, I know I showed it quick here just a second ago, but we'll wrap it around again. Pull all of those strings nice and tight. So I'm just going to wrap those around the back. I might have to lift this up just a tiny bit to make that nice and straight. And my fingers are very inky from playing with that Distress Oxide ink. So here is what the back of the panel looks like. I'm simply securing it with this Post-it tape. No one is ever going to see it. It does not matter if it's kind of messy. It's definitely not perfect back here. And I'm even going to go over this again with my nice strong adhesive when I go to attach this to the white top fold card base. Prior to adhering any of the balloons to this panel, I did trim it down. The panel started out at 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches, which is standard A2 size. I trimmed it down to 4 by 5 1/4 so that there will be a thin white border all the way around the outside. For my dimensional greeting, the word celebrate, also from Waffle Flower, was die cut from a sandwich of fun foam with stick it on both sides and then cardstock placed on the top. This is my favorite way to create my own dimensional greetings from delicate scripty dies. I love the look of a dimensional die cut greeting. I think they have such a great presence on a card. And I'm going to purposely leave this one white. There is so much going on the card with the pattern background that I think the white shows up really nicely, as well as this greeting stamped and embossed on black cardstock. That really makes the greeting pop, makes the balloons the nice just embellishment for the card, and then of course the fantastic patterned plaid background. The greeting I'm going to attach with a little foam adhesive as well, especially because one corner of it is going to overlap a dimensional balloon. I need to trim just a little bit so that's not wonky when I put it on there. But it overlaps just a little bit right here. And there is the greeting, which looks perfect. A couple of the balloons are going to overlap the sides. So the balloon at the top slightly overlaps. That helps ground the images on the card. And then this balloon over here on the right side will also overlap off of the right side of the card. I will trim off the excess from it as well. Get this last string tied in place. Make sure my strings are as straight as possible. Flip that over, cut off that excess, and then simply take some adhesive, and I'm just going to put a nice coat of strong adhesive all over this panel, attach it to a white top fold card base, and this Plaid Play background card is all finished. Thanks for joining me today for this card featuring Waffle Flower stamps and dies. For more product information, please visit waffleflower.com. Follow us on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook for more creative ideas. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time.